Most people think they're building wealth, but they're actually just collecting paper wins they can't spend for another 30 years. If your investments aren't putting cash in your pocket today, you're not investing for freedom, you're subsidizing a future you might not even recognize. Let's sit with that for a second, because I want you to picture something very specific. You're 34 years old. You make $82,000 a year, which is right around the median household income the Census Bureau reported for 2023. You got a raise last year. You did everything right. You max out your 401k match. You throw money into an index fund every 2 weeks, and on paper, your net worth chart is going up and to the right. And yet, on a random Tuesday night, you're lying in bed doing math about whether you can afford new brakes on your car without touching your emergency fund. That's not a hypothetical. According to a 2024 Bankrate survey, only 44% of Americans could cover a $1,000 emergency expense using savings alone. The rest would have to put it on a credit card, borrow from family, or cut something else. You are, statistically speaking, doing better than most people your age, and you still feel like you're one bad month away from chaos. My name is Ely, and I spend way too much time thinking about how people in the U.S. experience money psychologically. If you're someone who earns a normal income, maybe even more than you used to, but still doesn't feel financially secure, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Not because I need the validation, but because this channel exists specifically for people in that weird middle zone. The ones who aren't broke, aren't rich, and are quietly exhausted by both realities at once. Here's the thing. Most financial advice assumes your problem is a knowledge problem. Buy index funds. Diversify. Don't time the market. Start early. And look, none of that is wrong. But if the advice were actually solving the problem, we wouldn't have millions of people earning six figures who still feel like they're drowning. The Federal Reserve's 2023 survey of household economics and decision-making found that even among people earning over $100,000 a year, roughly 1 in 5 said they were just getting by financially. That's not a math problem. That's a psychology problem. And today I want to talk about a specific version of it that almost nobody addresses directly. The difference between assets that make you feel rich in 20 years and assets that make you feel secure right now. Now look, I need to be careful here, because I'm not telling you to abandon long-term investing. That would be irresponsible, and frankly, it would make me a hypocrite. What I'm saying is something more subtle, and it has to do with why so many people who are doing everything right still feel like they're white-knuckling their way through each month. Here's what most people don't realize. When you put money into a retirement account, a stock that doesn't pay dividends, or an asset that's fundamentally illiquid, you are making a psychological trade, not just a financial one. You're telling your nervous system, the reward for this sacrifice is 30 years away. And human brains, the actual biological hardware we're all running on, were not built to find comfort in rewards that far removed from the present. The APA has published research for years on what's called temporal discounting, which is basically our built-in tendency to value a smaller reward now over a larger reward later, even when the math clearly favors waiting. It's why people struggle to save for retirement even when they intellectually know compound interest works. Your brain isn't stupid. It's just running on a system that evolved for a world where later often meant never, because you might not survive the winter. So when your entire financial identity is built around assets that only pay off decades from now, you're fighting your own biology every single day. That's exhausting. That's why people feel like they're white-knuckling their way through building wealth instead of feeling calm about it. This is where it gets interesting. Let's talk about two people, both earning $75,000 a year, which is a realistic number for someone a few years into a stable career in a mid-sized American city. Person 1 puts 15% into a target date retirement fund, lives modestly, drives a used Honda, and feels stressed constantly because every month feels identical to the last. No progress they can see, touch, or feel. Just a number on an app that goes up slowly and drops in scary chunks whenever the market dips. Person 2 puts 10% into that same retirement fund, but also builds, over 3 or 4 years, a small portfolio of dividend-paying stocks, maybe a duplex they house hack, or a side business that throws off $800 a month in actual cash. Both people, on paper, might have similar net worths in 15 years. But person 2 feels fundamentally different day to day because their financial life includes tangible, present tense proof that the system is working. Now you might be thinking, isn't that just recency bias or emotional decision-making instead of rational investing? And that's a fair pushback. But here's the reframe. Financial stress isn't only about your net worth. It's about your relationship to uncertainty over time. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has tracked stagnant wage growth relative to housing and healthcare costs for over a decade. And what that data quietly reveals is that Americans aren't just dealing with tight budgets. They're dealing with a growing gap between effort and reward. You work hard, you save diligently, and the feedback loop that used to exist, where hard work produced visible results quickly, has stretched out to the point where it barely registers as real anymore. Think about it like planting a garden where you don't see a single sprout for 5 years. Even if you know, intellectually, that the seeds are growing underground, your motivation erodes because your senses aren't giving you any evidence. That's what pure long-horizon investing does to most people psychologically. It asks for constant sacrifice with zero sensory feedback. And humans, generally speaking, do not sustain behaviors well under those conditions. This is part of why so many people abandon their 401k contributions during hard years or panic sell during downturns. It's not because they're financially illiterate. It's because they've been running on an empty psychological tank for years, waiting for a reward that never shows up in a form they can actually feel. Now here's where the real mistake happens, the one nobody talks about. People hear cash flow matters, and they swing too far the other direction. They start chasing yield, buying whatever promises quick income, sometimes from sketchy sources, sometimes from decent ones with bad timing. And they end up more anxious, not less, because now they're managing risk they don't understand. That's not the answer either. The answer isn't abandon growth assets for income assets. The answer is understanding that your portfolio, and honestly your entire financial life, needs both a present tense signal and a future tense structure. You need some things that quietly compound in the background, and you need at least a few things that hand you real, spendable proof that your decisions are working. Let's put real numbers on this, because vague reassurance doesn't help anyone. Say you're making $60,000 a year. You've been told to invest 15%, which is $9,000 annually, into a retirement account. That's the textbook right answer, and largely, it is right. But if that's the entirety of your financial identity, every dollar locked away until you're 59 and a half, you are structurally guaranteeing that you will feel financially insecure for the next 20 to 30 years, regardless of how the market performs. Compare that to redirecting even $2,000 of that toward a taxable brokerage account holding dividend-paying companies, or a small rental property with modest but real monthly cash flow. Even if that's only $200 a month coming in, something shifts psychologically. You start to see money as something that works for you now, not just something you're feeding into a machine you'll unlock in 3 decades. This connects to something economists call the endowment effect, mixed with what I'd call identity lag. When your only exposure to investing is watching a number fluctuate on an app, you never develop the identity of someone who owns things that produce. You still feel, deep down, like an employee trading hours for dollars, even while technically being an investor. But the moment you receive an actual payment, rent from a tenant, a dividend deposit, revenue from something you built, your brain updates. You start identifying as someone who owns assets that work, not just someone who defers gratification indefinitely and hopes it pays off. Here's what most people don't realize about lifestyle creep either, because it's tangled up in all of this. According to Federal Reserve consumer credit data, auto loan balances and average monthly payments have climbed substantially over the past several years, with many new car loans now averaging over $700 a month. People get a raise from $60,000 to $75,000, and instead of that $15,000 increase going towards stability, it silently gets absorbed into a bigger apartment, a newer car, or nicer everyday spending, none of which are inherently wrong, but all of which quietly erase the financial breathing room the raise was supposed to create. This is why people making 6 figures still feel broke. Their income grew, but their threshold for enough grew right alongside it, like a treadmill that speeds up the moment you start jogging faster. So what do you actually do with all this? Not fantasy advice, not just budget better. Real steps. First, separate your portfolio mentally into 2 categories: growth for later and proof for now. You don't need 50% in each. Even a 10 to 20% allocation towards something that pays you in real time, dividends, rental income, a small cash-flowing side venture, creates enough psychological feedback to keep you engaged and confident in the larger, slower-growing majority of your portfolio. Second, before your next raise even lands, decide in advance where a portion of it goes. Not all of it toward lifestyle, not all of it toward savings. Something like 50% toward stability, 30% toward long-term growth, 20% toward genuinely enjoying your life without guilt. Deciding in advance removes the emotional decision-making in the moment, which is when lifestyle creep sneaks in. Third, track proof income separately from your paycheck. Even if it's small, even if it's $40 a month from a dividend fund, write it down, watch it grow. This isn't about the money itself yet. It's about training your brain to trust that your assets can produce, not just accumulate. Fourth, stop comparing your timeline to strangers online who are either lying, cherry-picking, or starting from a very different position than you. The comparison itself, according to research from the APA on social comparison and financial anxiety, is one of the strongest predictors of financial dissatisfaction, independent of actual income or net worth. Your progress needs to be measured against your own starting point, not someone else's highlight reel. Here's the quiet truth underneath everything I've said today. Financial security isn't really about the size of your number. It's about whether your day-to-day experience of money gives you evidence that things are working. Pure long-term investing, without any present tense proof, keeps your nervous system in a permanent state of deferred hope, and deferred hope, stretched out over decades, starts to feel indistinguishable from stress. You don't need to abandon your retirement account. You don't need to become a landlord overnight or chase risky yield. You just need to build in a few things that pay you back now, so your brain and your bank account are finally telling you the same story. That's the takeaway. Build for the future, but don't starve the present while you do it. Real stability comes from having both. If this made you think differently about your own accounts today, stick around, because this channel is entirely about untangling the psychology behind decisions like this one.